Hello, everyone. Come on in. We are so happy to be here today. Hello. Welcome to the Authors Learning Lab. So guess what, you all? This is our launch event for our new author community where we are really setting out on a mission with Elohai International to offer a space where authors can collaborate and flourish. So welcome to the broadcast. This is our kickoff event, and this is called the Authors Marketing Huddle. We're going to be doing these events every so often where we invite authors on to share their marketing insights. I am Natasha T. Watson, and I'm going to turn the music down. All right. So welcome, everyone. My name is Natasha T. Watson. I am the publisher and CEO at Elohai International Publishing and Media, and our purpose is to partner with with visionaries, basically kingdom-minded visionaries, to share their mission-centered stories. And what does that mean? That means that we're often sharing stories we're always sharing stories that have a purpose. Oftentimes that purpose is to build the kingdom of God. Oftentimes that purpose is to show how God has really just been the overarching factor, how his redemption plan works no matter where we are in life. And so we work with a lot of kingdom entrepreneurs. We work with those mission-centered entrepreneurs. We work with a lot of missionaries and just people who are doing great work. So we want to welcome you to the Authors Marketing Huddle. This is a new initiative of Elohai International inside of our Authors Learning Lab. And so if you are watching this, you are probably inside of the Authors Learning Lab, and we are just excited to have you here. Listen, today we have some special guests. I'm going to show their pictures again. We have some special guests, Carl Sharperson Jr. and Casey Sharperson. Now, these two, you might say, well, why are they the first guests? Well, because they're super important to us. Back in, I want to say this was probably 2017, I received a phone call from this bright and energetic young lady, and she had been referred to our company, and she wanted to give her dad an amazing birthday gift, and he has a powerful story. And so she wanted to offer him the opportunity to get help with his book. And so she told me about her dad, and she gifted him our book coaching program for his birthday. And so me and her dad, who is Carl Sharperson. So I'm talking about Casey Sharperson now. And me and Carl, we just hit it off, and we worked together, and I had the honor of being his book coach. And so he published a book called Sharp Leadership. And so in this picture that you're seeing on your screen, Casey is holding her dad's book, and he's holding her book. And so we worked together to publish his book, Sharp Leadership, which tells his story of how he has survived some important things, but more so how he gained the leadership skills throughout his journey in the military and just overcoming cancer, raising his family. And this book, he offers powerful leadership skills. And this book has been used by universities and many different organizations. And I'm always at awe by Carl's drive. He's actually our best-selling author at Elohai International for the last maybe 4 years. He sells the most books. And so I'm always interested to talk with him and see how he does it. So I just wanted to bring him on to share some of his wisdom with you. Now, Casey is just I don't want to call her mini mogul only because she's tiny, but she's a mogul in her own right. She is a powerful coach, a speaker. She is a marketing extraordinaire. She produces content, and I just love her. She has a book called Dream, Build, Repeat. And I also had the opportunity of working with her on that book. And so I want to just bring them both on. I'll tell you a little bit more about them. Carl Sharperson Jr. is a leadership innovation strategist. And let me just make sure you guys can see me now. Okay, great. So Carl Sharperson Jr., he is a leadership innovation strategist, a speaker and an author and a coach. He specializes in taking leaders from mediocre to maximizing their potential in work and personal life. He is passionate about his message because he understands that most people are working only at 50% capacity due to lack of clear leadership, development, or job fit. He transforms his audience and coaching clients through his proprietary Sharp leadership coaching process, as well as drawing his unique experiences from the military, corporate American entrepreneurship. All right. And so Casey Sharperson is known as the confidence cultivator. She is a speaker, a blogger, a mentor to millennials who are looking to go to the next level. She is passionate about cultivating the confidence within others to take them from stagnant to stellar in order to live the lives they were created to live. She has been named DMV's top 30 under 30. She is passionate about merging faith and business to unlock her clients' God-given potential. Can you all tell already why we had to have these two on and why we had to have them together? So without further ado, I want you all to show some love in the comments and say hi to Casey and Carl. Hello, you all. How are you doing?
Doing well. Glad to be here.
We are great. So wonderful. Casey, well, Carl, we'll start with you first. Just welcome the audience. Say hello, whatever's on your heart, just to kick us off.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to be here. It's an honor to be in the inaugural show of many, I'm sure. It's always a pleasure to be with Natasha. You know, Natasha kind of transformed my inability to speak and write and made me look like a superstar.
You're just so kind. Anyway, that is not true. But Carl, Casey, take it over.
Okay. Well, thank you. Look, I mean, this is what happens when you have somebody who is like, so you have a coach that's so on this journey with you and like knows so much about you. So honestly, I mean, what else can my dad say? He's already been introduced, you know, in such an incredible way. But Natasha, it's been such an awesome journey to work with you. And I told you I don't know if I told you this. I definitely said it to myself after our first call was that, you know, God sent me to work with you. And I knew like with the whole, because I had seen some of her content. And when it came to the point where I said, I really feel like my dad needs to just like get this book done, Natasha was the first person that popped into my head. And this is what happens like as a brand strategist and as a coach, like this is what I want my clients to experience, where someone creates enough content and creates so much value that immediately you're like, I have to fix this problem. I have to do this thing. I'm going to call this person. So as Natasha mentioned, I'm a brand strategist, author of the book Dream Build Repeat. And my journey was one that was a little bit more challenging. Like the actual writing process was a lot harder than I anticipated, which was a journey in itself. And so I'm sure those of you who are in the author's lab, you know, you want to write this book, you're in process. And so for me, the process was not as simple, like actually trusting my voice and trusting that God had a message to get out, but I persevered. So for those of you who feel like it's been taking a long time for you to write your book, just keep doing it, because on the other side is such a powerful testament. So I am thrilled and honored to be able to have worked with Natasha. She pulled out the stories that needed to be pulled out. She helped refine things and made the actual book publishing process a lot simpler for me. So it's been a lot of fun. And the book's been out for a little over a year now. It came out in 2019. And I was able to do a book tour and all sorts of things. And so it's just a powerful tool to be able to write a book that changes lives.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. That was wonderful. And I'm sorry I started laughing like that, but Carl is just, he's just such a, He's a gem, and Casey's a gem too. And you guys are gonna figure out all the reasons why. I just love both of them. But thank you both again for being here. And audience, please type questions in the chat room. We do have some questions. So I'm going to ask the first question. Our first question today is, what has been the most rewarding part of being an author?
For me, the most important part about being an author is it's kind of overwhelming and humbling for people to read your book, because my book's pretty transparent. It talks about my life. And so people really get a chance to really get to know me. So, people will come up and say certain things that are in the book, and talk about how they read the book and they started crying, and or really resonated with them because they read it to their uncle or somebody with cancer, or they talk about I started on my business because I read your book. That's the most humbling thing and the most rewarding piece for me about writing the book.
Awesome. Casey, what about you?
Mine is similar, because mine, as I mentioned, the process of me writing the book was more challenging because I was really trying to hone in to the fact that my voice mattered. My voice was, important. The stories were important. And that's a lot of what the content is in the book is about. And so I was going along the process and really refining what it is that I was writing about simultaneously. So when people give you the testament of, I read the book and it changed my life, I was journaling throughout the book, I was crying, like my dad said, I was crying when I was reading the book. And I had one of the things that really shocked me, I think, was right when my it had probably been out for a week and a half. And there was a lady, she was about 75 years old. And she told me, she had just met me probably a week before. And she heard about my book, so she bought it. The next week we met and she goes, Casey, I have been working on my master's in divinity. She's like, I've been stuck. I haven't done anything with it. It's been sitting for such a long time. She said, I read your book in the week and then picked my master's up and finished the work. So it was something that really blew my mind, to where I had a vision of what I thought the book could do, that it would resonate with people in their 20s and 30s. But what I found was that because I talk so heavily about identifying your dreams and overcoming fear and getting really clear about what it is that you were put on this earth to do, that's a message that transcends age. So it was really cool to see how people in different walks of life, different stages of life, really resonated with the content.
Yeah. And that's a big reward that, you never know how much impact you're going to have with your book. And I always tell authors that it's so important to just go forward and trust your process, because on the other side, there are people who need your message. There are people who are waiting. And so if you're faithful in this process of writing and publishing and really just investing the time and everything that it'll take to get this message that God has put inside of you out, you're going to see the fruit of it. And so I love that story. Okay. So yesterday, we posted in our group and we asked people to share questions. And so I'm going to stay with Casey for a moment. And Leah Jocelyn, she is an author. She just published a book and a journal with us. We worked with her, and she's actually hosting you all a Bible study on the book of Ruth, me and her, for the next 5 weeks. So you can register for that on our website. But Leah, she said, I remember watching the broadcast you did with Casey last year, and she mentioned doing coaching. I would appreciate hearing about why she decided to get into coaching, what kind of training she did, getting clients as a younger person, and what type of coaching programs they offer, the process behind developing that, and how they manage, she's talking to both of you now, business plus ministry.
Ooh, okay. So lots of questions. I'm going to remember all of them. And then if I miss something, just toss it back at me. So I got into coaching, and I think the concept of coaching is one that just feels a little it feels kind of large. It feels maybe for some a little unattainable. Like, how do you become a coach? And the biggest thing that I talk to my clients about is that you have your own process, you have your own journey, you have your expertise. The people that you coach are going to be people that need what you have. So there's a lot of fear, I think, around, am I good enough to be a coach? How do I start this? Do I have to get 15 certifications and go to school and do all of this? There are plenty of people that have certification programs. You can certainly do that. But then I always encourage my clients to, you just need to find the people that are a few steps behind you, or you're a few steps ahead of them, right? And so that's what you look for in a coach. And that was one of the things that I started finding, that even when I was younger, people to me for advice, and they would ask me like, well, how are you doing this? And what's going on here? And based on my different experiences and being an athlete for many, many years, being doing pageants and doing all sorts of things, like I collected these different skills that really boil down to relationship building. And then under that big umbrella, it made it a lot easier as I was working with people. When I was talking to them and they would say, oh, I have this idea, then I would say, oh my gosh, in 5 minutes, I've like laid out this whole business plan. And they're like, I've been stuck forever. So I started recognizing and realizing that there were trends, there were things that had gone on in my life that really began to prepare me. And so from a perspective, and I did outline really that process in my book. And so I'd highly recommend, if you're in that stage of I'm trying to figure out what I need to do and if I'm qualified to do it and how I start to attract those types of people. So in the end, telling my story, helping people along the way was really how I started attracting clients. And so I would tell people a little bit about my journey. People would ask me questions. It was more of an organic, like a natural process. So that was a little bit of my story. How did I get clients? How did I manage business and ministry? I would not classify myself as being officially like in ministry with ministry titles, but I will say that I teach on Sundays from a platform. Some people may say it's preaching, and so I'm just like, man, whatever God wants me to do is what I'll do, right? And so I haven't really stressed about the fact of like, how do I charge for services and all of that? The way that I run my business is very similar in that I run my business, I charge for those services. When I work with churches, I'm like, whatever the Lord wants to do is what I'll do. So I would love, I think her name is Leah. So Leah, if you want to chat more, happy to talk with you offline. But hopefully that was a little snippet as to what that process and what that journey has been. But it's always growing, always developing.
That was such a great question. Carl, did you want to add to that?
It's difficult to add following my daughter, but I'll try.
Okay.
Short. She said, I agree with everything that she said. For me, the coaching process was something that I've always done. I grew up playing sports. When I was young, I thought I wanted to be an athlete, professional athlete. And I've always used the principles of coaching. When I was in the military, it's kind of the same thing, but that process of coaching where you're not on the field, you're helping people get better. You can't be on the field. And I've always done that. I've always been an encourager, which is what I got from my mother. I had good work ethic from my dad. And the coaching, one of the things about coaching is really a lot of listening and understanding what the needs are, what the client needs, and what the customer wants, and developing rapport. That's probably the most important thing. And I've always done a pretty good job of that, of developing rapport. And I do that by, number one, being very transparent about myself and my life and what I've been through. And I've asked them to do the exact same thing. I can talk to somebody in about 15 minutes. They'll be telling me their life story, stuff they've never told anybody else. Because I'm so transparent, when I have that initial conversation with them, they feel real comfortable. And that's really what it's all about. So identifying what the issues are with an individual, what their goals are, the same thing with an organization. It's kind of the same process. Where do you want to go? What kind of strategies can we put together? And then put together some actionable steps that will allow them on a daily basis that they know that if they do those things, they'll get to where they want to be. As far as ministry, doing ministry, for me, it's kind of, I don't know how you separate the two. I am who I am. And what I want people to do is when they see me, they ought to see Christ, no matter where I am. Whether I am at church, whether I'm in the community, whether I'm coaching somebody, whether I'm talking to some athletes, it doesn't make any difference. My countenance and what they see in me ought to be different. And people are attracted to that light by walking the talk. And I talk about that in my book. The 5 basic principles in my book, I talk about never quitting. I talk about always taking care of your people. I talk about telling the truth. I talk about relationships because life and success is always about relationships. And I talk about priorities, and my priorities are faith, family, and friends. It's in the book. It's a simple concept. I'm a Marine. In the Marine Corps, there's a term that they use called simplify, which stands for always faithful. And my term is simplify and simplify. In order to be real simple. I'm a simple man with a simple plan.
That is just so good. Like, I just can sit and listen to you both like all day, literally. Okay, so that was some great information. I want to just pull out a few things that they both said. Casey mentioned that when you are building a coaching business, and she said, all you need to do is look for someone or the people who are a step behind you, like who are basically, you don't have to try to make it more difficult than it is. It's like somebody is a step behind you or 2 steps behind you, and you can coach them at least to where you are. So I love that. And then Carl talked about being a light wherever you are. And like, if you're a believer, it's no difference, like, you know, between the ministry and the business in terms of like our character and how we function in our business. And so he talks about being that light wherever we are and keeping things simple. So I love that. And his book, you all, is so good. We're going to show it in a moment, but I want to stay with Carl for a second because we have a question for Carl. So it says, Carl, you've been quite successful in getting your book out, especially with speaking engagements. How do you secure most of your speaking engagements? And before you answer that, Carl, can you just talk about some of the places and organizations that have booked you to speak? I mean, sometimes you call me and you're like, or you text me and you're like, Natasha, I want to order 100 books and send them to this address, or send 200 books to this address. And what are you doing? Like, what is your secret sauce?
Well, as far as how do I get my speaking engagements, is several avenues. One is through, I have a MailChimp account. So I've got probably 3,000 people that are on it. And one of the things that I've done probably 3 or 4 years ago is I put together a MailChimp account. So whenever I get somebody new, I load them in my system. And once a month, I put out a short 2-minute video about some topic. And I have scripture with it and I talk about it. So that keeps people on my mind. So once a month, somebody's getting pinged by me, hopefully in a positive way. So it keeps them on my mind, or keeps me on their mind. So that's one thing that I do. The other thing is I post on LinkedIn, different speakers that I have, book reviews that I've gotten. So that keeps me on people's minds. I do the same thing on Facebook. And then when I speak, sometimes I'll get referrals from people. So speaking gives me an opportunity to sell the book. Selling the book gives me an opportunity to get speaking engagements as well as consulting assignments. And so some of the places that I've spoken at are, I'm in the process of speaking at a Rotary Club, of speaking at Rotary Clubs, universities, Claflin University, Clemson University. I attend events like Men of Color for Clemson. There are corporations that'll hire me to go in and do a workshop. I'm doing a workshop in Indiana. I'm doing another workshop in Indiana and Columbia, South Carolina for the same construction company. So basically what they're going to do is they're going to purchase the book for the top 100 leaders in their organization. Okay, they're going to read my book, and then I'm going to do a 2.5-hour workshop about the principles of the book. And the key 2 things that they want to do is they want to create teamwork, and they want to include inclusiveness and diversity. So all of that is covered in my book. And the book is so rich that I can take that book and I can do a 1-hour workshop, a 4-hour workshop, a 1-day workshop, a weekend workshop, just by facilitating the principles, because that book is so rich and everybody can relate to it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And you've done such an amazing job. So I just want to applaud you on that again. So I hope that everyone that you're taking notes. Carl pulled out some, I'm going to pull out some things that Carl said. He talked about really engaging people who have given him reviews. He talked about consistency. I hope you heard that. Consistently sending out positive messages, insight to his newsletter, his mailing list. He talked about basically using every opportunity to create another opportunity. So, he talked about LinkedIn. You know, many of us, millennial generation, we focus on Instagram and, you know, all these other Facebook and things like that. But don't forget about your LinkedIn account, because that often is where the opportunities are. So he talked about that and reaching out to people via LinkedIn and who are connected with him on LinkedIn. And so those were some really great tips. I hope that you are taking notes. Casey is also very, very popular on the speaking circuit. So I want you to also add to that, Casey.
Yes. So as far as getting speaking engagements, just like my dad said, it's really about putting the information that you want to be known for. So as a brand strategist, I'm always thinking, when somebody thinks about Casey, what are they going to think, feel? You know, what do they want to hire me for? So as a result of putting out content, either by email or by my podcast or by live video, one of the things I really want to highlight is still live video is really powerful, right? Like, you're here in this live video format, and so you're able to hear our hearts, you're able to ask questions, things like that. So live video is really powerful. If you have shied away from that as an author, I would definitely encourage you to start doing that, because again, it allows you an opportunity to engage with your people. And from there, whether or not people immediately, hire you for something, they're going to think of you for something. So I recently did an event for the junior league of the DC area. And that's because it came from a connection that I had. I've known her on a personal level for a while. And then there was a moment where she goes, wait, like, you have this book, you do this. And then there was this moment of connection, right? And so, as has already been shared several times, is that consistency really matters, and people are watching you, whether or not they're engaging with your content or not. They're watching you, and sometimes people will surprise you and reach out. I had a friend from college who we're just kind of on like this fun personal level. And then one day she says, oh, I want you to come and speak to this Upward Bound trio group at my university. And so that was supposed to happen. Then COVID happened, but I wasn't able to speak there, but they still did end up purchasing tons of books and sharing those with the students. So again, a book is such a powerful tool. It's a marketing tool, and it's a tool for people to connect. It's really like an entry space to coaching, to consulting, to all sorts of things.
Absolutely. So rich. Okay, so the comments are really coming in. Natoya says people are watching whether they are engaging in your content or not. This is a comment from Danny Prince Jr., but he says the look on Casey's face when her dad speaks says everything. Such a dynamic father-daughter team. Yes. And then this is Leah. She says she would love to chat with you, Casey. So praise God. I'm so excited that you all are engaged in these two. They're really some of my favorite people. Okay, so I have another question for Casey. We always talk about turning books into movements at Elohai International. So we teach our authors that it's not just about one book. It's really about taking that book and becoming everything God has for you. And so question is, you both have been successful in turning your books into movements. Casey, can you tell us about the Dream, Build, Repeat podcast and some of the other initiatives that you have started as a result of your book?
Yes, that was actually one of the things that I was very intentional about. I think it's easy for people to say, I want to write a book to tell my story. And no shade, but to tell your story, you've got to make people care about your story, right? Like, why do they care about your story? And from that perspective, I said, okay, even though Dream, Build, Repeat is definitely going through my story, I wanted people to look introspectively and say, okay, this story that Casey's telling about her experience is just a model. And so from there, what can I take away from that and how can I implement that in my life? And from the idea of the book, I said, well, in order to promote the book, I want to have a podcast that goes along with it. And the podcast has some solo episodes. It also has some interviews. And with those interviews, I really want people to hear, what does it look like to dream? What does it look like to go out of your comfort zone, to do something different, to try new things, to fail? And that is the power of a podcast. So from the podcast, I have the book. I also went on a tour, which was a ton of fun and also really terrifying because who's going to show up? And people did actually show up. It was really powerful. So you can take one thing, one item, and begin to kind of waterfall it or expand it into something that's larger than a solo book. And from there, I can begin to build on, another book or other things that are going on. So the idea of it being a movement was really important for me because I wanted it to be larger than a one-time experience. I wanted people to engage on another level.
That's so good. Okay, Carl, did you want to add to that?
As far as making it a movement, the other thing that I'm able to do is I've had an individual at the University of California, Dominguez Hills. He's a professor there. He was an ambassador once upon a time. But anyway, he teaches a management course and a leadership course there. And he actually uses my book as required reading. And so the students will read the book, and then I'll on Zoom talk to them about the book. So it's a manual. I call it a manual for overcoming adversity in any environment, in any stage of life. So I've been able to do that. I was asked to speak at my alma mater. I went to a prep school before I went to the Naval Academy, and it's called Marine Military Academy in the southern tip of Texas. So they asked me to be the commencement speaker the 22nd of May. And I'm going down to do that. So I came on that campus 50 years ago. In about 2 months, it'll be 50 years ago as a high school student, graduated from high school and went to that campus. And I'm going back to be the commencement speaker for that organization.
Wow.
Amazing.
That is impact. That's impact. I love it. I love it. So this is Carl's book cover and information about the book. And Sharp Leadership is for those who have been counted out, who have faced seemingly insurmountable obstacles, who felt stuck in their circumstance. And it offers strategies on how to lead from an authentic place, overcome adversity with sanity, form a tribe of supporters, and make every circumstance a learning opportunity. You can get Carl's book at carlsharpersonjr.com. We'll make sure we put both of the websites up in a moment before we get off, okay? But we have a couple of more questions. We're not going to keep them all afternoon, but if you all have questions, you can definitely type them in the chat room. But we just have a couple more questions. So there's a question that came in, and it says, how much time did you take marketing and promoting your book, both before the book came out and after? And I don't know if that ever stops, marketing and promoting ever stops, but you all feel free to answer.
Yeah, for me, I spent a little bit of time, not a whole lot. It kind of came out, and what happened was it took us about 4 months to put it together. I mean, it took 65 years to develop the content, but then it took a total of about 4 months for it to be put on paper and get put out. So it was kind of out there. And I talked to several people. I was talking to this guy who's a marketing genius. And I asked him, I says, well, how do I market my book? He says, well, in the olden days, 20, 30, 40 years ago, you would have a book signing at some library, some place or something like that. And then people would come and do that. But that's not the way it is now. He says, one of the most powerful things you can do is have an influential person to endorse your book and then kind of do it that way. But it's an ongoing process. I keep my books in my book bag. I keep them in my gym bag. I sold one today. I was working out at the gym, and this guy's sitting next to me. We get to talking, and he's the HR manager for the county library of the county that I live in. After a 15-minute conversation, he's got my book, right? And he's in the process of doing a leadership thing with his people with COVID and stuff like that. So we're going to get together. So I do that all the time. My wife, kind of says, you always got your books, y'all. I do believe it's a life-changing book. So it's my obligation to get it in the hands of as many people as possible. So I'm very, very passionate about that. So I'm always marketing my book.
Sorry. So I want to chime in. Carl says, I do believe that it's a life-changing book and it's my responsibility to get it in as many hands as possible. So I need you all, if you're investing in your book, you too need to believe that it's a life-changing book. You have to have that confidence in your book, because when you do have confidence, you'll show up every day. You'll consistently market. You'll consistently tell people about it. You won't forget about your book. You won't forget to bring it up in a conversation. Like Carl said, he always keeps his book on him. And that's one of the benefits of having an actual physical copy of your book and not just publishing an ebook, because you can go places and you can say, yeah, here's my book. And once, a lot of times when people grab that book from your hand, they're going to look at it and they'll be like, okay, well, how much is it? And they'll buy your book. So you have to have that confidence and know that your book is worthy to be shared. A lot of times people don't feel confident, or they start to doubt their work if people don't buy it, or if it doesn't sell as much as they want to in the beginning. Then they'll say, okay, well, maybe it's not that good, or maybe I need to revise it, or maybe I don't need to share it anymore. And that's just a lie. It's going to take some consistent work and you consistently showing up every day for yourself and that message that God has put inside of you. Casey, do you want to add to that?
100% agree. That was one of the things that I underestimated at the beginning. And this is also what I coach my clients on as far as sales, is that people assume I posted that my book was coming and everybody is just supposed to know. Like, they're supposed to remember, they're going to put it on their calendar. My book is coming out on this day and they're just going to purchase, right? That is actually not the way of the world. People are consuming so much more content now than they were previously. So the idea of, oh, I'm just going to post one time, or I'm going to post once a week or once a month about the book, and I don't want to overwhelm people, that's not the expectation, right? If you want to sell anything, you have to put it in front of people. And it's not something to feel slimy about. Like, just like my dad said, you know, your book is a tool. It's powerful. If you believe in your book, other people will believe in the book. But just because you're not seeing, if you have seen like some slow sales in the beginning, doesn't mean that it's over. It just means that you need to market better, right? It just means that you need to tell more people about it passionately. So that is what I always recommend to people, is like, you have to have that conversation. And if you're especially posting on social media, you have to post consistently about it, and not that it's just a book cover all the time, right? Because there's got to be some more strategy behind it, but you're always leaning back into your products and your services, your books, the things that you offer, because people forget.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Thank you. Thank you to you both. That was excellent. Okay, so we're winding down here, but I do want to give you all the opportunity to share, in case we haven't addressed the question or something that you wanted to share. So this question is, what are your top tips for authors who want to use their book to launch or build their businesses?
Yeah, I'll give a couple of tips. The first tip is to have a strategy. As I mentioned before, Dream, Build, Repeat really is the foundation. Like, it is my life story, but within it, I have different tips and tricks and things that people should know that, again, lead into potential clients, customers. I wrote it in a way that I could take it into a corporation. I could take it into a church. I could take it wherever it needs to go. So that was my personal strategy. For those of you who are in ministry, it'll have a different feel, but whatever you write about, whatever your content is, you should be thinking further than just the book, right? Like, where do you want the book to appear? Where do you want it to show up? And then what are people going to do after they finish reading your book? And so people that have read my book and then they say, oh, I want more, or I need some more strategy. Some people can take it and build what they need to build right from the book. Some people will want more kind of hands-on approach. Like, I have always invested in coaching, so I find so much value in coaching. And I tend to, again, attract people that also want to do that. You know, you can read the book, but also I wanted people to see, here's how, you know, we could work with Casey. So those are some of the things and the tips and tricks that I always recommend that my clients do. And it's to be really strategic about how you position your book and think further than just the book. What do you want people to do with you after they finish reading the book?
That's good. Carl?
Yeah, let me give you a quick story of kind of how delayed things occur. So, and how you mix ministry with your regular daily life. So we started meeting outside. I'm the elder in a church. We started meeting outside about a year ago, and so we have these outside services. So this family of four comes. They're eating across the street at a restaurant. They sit in the back of this lawn that we have. They listen to the service. I go and talk to them. We exchange information. She sends me a note and tells me, gives me all of her information during the service. Okay. At the end of the service, I go up to her and I talk to her again. Thanks for coming. Her daughter was interviewing or checking out Clemson University. That's what they were doing at the place. They saw the sign out there. They said we could have church here. They enjoyed the service. I'm talking to the lady. And afterwards, she says, I'm an anchor for a news station in Indianapolis, Indiana. Right. And I can have anybody on my show for about 15 minutes every Wednesday. And I think I'd like to have you on it. Boom. OK, so I forgot to give her a book. So I knew where she was going. So I found her. She was getting some paraphernalia. I talked to her. We're sitting there talking with her two kids and her husband. We get to talking and we ask some questions and I give her a book and I said, can you read it? She says, I said, how about if we read your book? We're getting ready to travel to Myrtle Beach, which is about a 4-hour drive. And how about if we read your book? So every hour, I got an update from the family about what they took away from each chapter in my book until they got to Myrtle Beach. Okay. So the other thing I found out in this conversation I was having with her, her husband told me she has got 4 Emmys. So this lady's got 4 Emmys as an anchor for the TV station. I just happened to be there. The Lord brought us together. Okay. So we do that. So I've been on her show 2 times, right? About 3 months after I was on the show, I get an intake from my website from a person who's the vice president of a construction company. His story is this. My wife saw your interview in Indianapolis, bought me a book. I read your book. I'm going to do a workshop. We're going to have this all hands meeting and I want you to come and speak. So that's an example of it. That's like a 3 or 4 month period where all that happened. So, but again, I was passionate about the book. And so you gotta believe in it yourself, just like Natasha said, which is so important. I think you're on mute.
I was. So believe in your book, be passionate about your book, take your book everywhere. Casey talked about having a strategy. Don't just think about the fact that people are going to purchase your book, but what do you want them to do afterwards? And I recommend building that in the book. So you let them know about the services you offer, even in if you're writing nonfiction. And there's places in the front matter, that's the front of the book before the content starts, or the back matter, that's the back of the book after the content of the book ends, that you can use in your book to promote your book. It's always great to build community around your book, whether you're going to do that through a Facebook group like this, whether you're going to do it through a podcast or a blog or email community, however it is that you're going to do it. But it's also important that you just create conversation around your book. We're going to do we'll probably do another broadcast about that particular topic, another author marketing huddle about it. But I just want to encourage you all, listen to this broadcast again, because they both shared a lot of gems, and you just got to listen and write them down, and it'll help you develop a strategy, your own book marketing strategy. Casey and Carl, any other last comments before we go?
If I can help anyone, my book is multi-generational. I've had a 10-year-old read it, 99-year-old great-great-grandmother read it. I had CEOs use it to deliver content to their employees. I've had entrepreneurs use it as a self-help book, military veterans, educators. I call it a manual for overcoming adversity in any environment, in any stage of life. And it's a simple read. I was doing some work with an organization, and the person told me, says, look on my shelf there. I've got probably 100 leadership books, but none of them are as practical and as valuable as your book because it's simple.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Before you share your last words, their website addresses are there, but you can also search for Carl Sharperson Jr. on Facebook. I don't think you have an Instagram. And Casey is Casey Correa. Correa, am I pronouncing it right? Careem.
It's hard, but you can find it. I'm the only Casey Sharperson in the world, so if you search me up, all my stuff pops up. Yeah.
Okay. So Google. One thing, something came into my mind as you all were as Carl was talking that I really, really wanted to share, but I think I forgot. So we'll just continue. Casey, any last words?
Yes. Last words I would say, and I tell my clients this all the time, is that your voice matters, your story matters. And if you're feeling any like resistance on this journey, that you just have to persevere. And that was my story. I just had to like press through, get it done. And then I recognized that the journey for me to get the book done was the work that God wanted to do in me. The actual product was the work that he wanted out into the world. So it was like this two-pronged approach. And it's been a really beautiful journey. And I would say, trust Natasha as your coach, as your leader, invest in her services, because I truly believe that when you invest in yourself, when you put forth the effort to information that you need and want, God just shows up in such incredible ways. And I remember when I was 23 years old, investing, 5 figures in a coach and just not really knowing what the outcome was going to be. But it was such a transformational part. And my coach ended up writing the foreword to my book, Marshawn Evans Daniels. So if you're familiar with her, she wrote the foreword to my book. And it's just been this process and this journey of understanding that what you have to offer into the world is so powerful. And you have the ability through writing a book, through publishing a book, to really build, as Natasha said, community and friendships and all the things. So just persevere. Again, if anybody needs a marketing, business, branding strategy, would love to have a conversation with you. But of course, if you have any questions, follow-up questions, you can definitely hit me up on Instagram if you use that. That I'm super fast on there, but you can also shoot me an email. Would love to connect with you.
Can I? You're on mute, Natasha. Can I say one more thing, Natasha?
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking about something. The other thing that Natasha has the ability to do as a book coach. And what I tell people all the time, I was trying to coach this guy, and he was very successful. And he says, Carl, I got one objection question. He said, how can you help me? I got a multi-million-dollar business, How can you help me? I said, well, what does a superintendent have? What does a CEO have? What does a military general have in common? He says, I don't know. I said, they don't have anybody they can talk to. So the reason I'm saying that is because when you write your own stuff, you know what you want to say. But for me, if I had Natasha looking at my stuff and she can understand it, then that's a great check for, can somebody else really understand? Because what happens, we get into our talk, we start talking acronyms and things like that, and people get lost, So having a book coach is outstanding because they can see stuff that you can't see. When I was working with Natasha, I'd do something. She said, what does this mean? What does this mean? Have you thought about this? So that's the real value in having a coach that can walk you through the process, even if you're a good writer yourself.
Oh, thank you. You guys, I did not pay Carl to to promote me. Didn't pay him at all. I promise you that. But thank you, Carl. I really do appreciate you. And Casey, I appreciate you. I love you both so dearly. And I just am excited about what's happening in your lives and what's going to happen. Guys, connect with Carl for leadership coaching. If you want to move to the next level, even if you're a professional in a organization and you want to figure out how to get promoted, how to position yourself for that next level, visit him. He's going to help you. If you need marketing strategy, brand strategy, content development, contact Casey Sharperson. She's being very modest, but she has worked with some of the biggest brands that you know and that you hear. You heard her talk about Marshawn Evans Daniels, and just she's people have poured into her. The best of the best have poured into her, and she continuously also pours into them using her gifts and her talents. So I recommend them both. I want to share. So thank you both. Thank you. And this is their contact information. And I'm going to just wrap up the broadcast, but I want to tell you all a couple of things if you're watching. Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Casey.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Okay, so thank you all so much for tuning into our first Authors Marketing Huddle. Casey and Carl Sharperson, they're brilliant people. I hope you learned a lot. If you are looking to get your book written, get coaching, we offer a few programs. We do work one-on-one with individuals, but sometimes it's better to work in a group. So we have our 30-day book writing challenge coming up. Again, it's launching in May, and that's where I work with a group of people to help them pen their books in 30 days. And we also just launched our Write, Speak, Increase Academy, and we're on our spring semester now, but the summer semester will launch again in July. And if you want information about either of those programs, you can visit those links. You can sign up for the 30-day book writing challenge today, and we'll work together starting in May, or you can sign up for writespeakincrease.com. If you want to get into the spring cohort, you're welcome to. We have the videos and everything, but if you want to start fresh, we'll be launching another semester of Write, Speak, Increase Academy in July. If you have questions, if you want to connect with us, visit us online at Elohai Publishing or ElohaiIntl.com, or you can send me an email at that email address. You all, this was the first Authors Marketing Huddle inside of our Authors Learning Lab. If you know anybody else who needs help, who wants wisdom on their process of becoming an author or excelling as an author, invite them to the group. We are so excited to have them. Until next time, have a blessed day and a blessed weekend. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.